Welcome everyone. I'm pretty excited about this summit that's coming up. COAA's been very actively involved both through our advisory board and also through the COAA board. So let me just jump right in. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to have comments from the advisory board chair, that's Derek Armineau, vice president over at Suncor. Then we're going to talk about the first session, which is going to be the owner's AWP expectations. We'll get into more detail on that in a couple of minutes. Then we've got 3 how-to sessions, aligning the key stakeholders through the entire project lifecycle, determining AWP metrics and data requirements, and then finally, improving project procurement. The last session that we're going to be talking about is the case study by Shell. It's a recent $760 million project that they applied AWP to and got some spectacular results. So you'll be hearing about that as well. If you want to get more detail, we have an awpsummit.com website available, and it gives details on who the exact speakers are, more detail on the topic areas. So highly recommend you take a look at the Summit website. So Derek Armineau is our advisory board chair, and I'm just going to hand it over to Derek to talk about the summit and his comments.
All right, good day everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Derek Armineau. I'm the Vice President of Project Resources at Suncor Energy, and I'm proud to be the Advisory Board Chair for the AWP Summit on May 7th. I am responsible at Suncor to lead advancement of project execution excellence across the enterprise. Native Albertan, born and raised, born in Lethbridge, raised in Edmonton, Calgary. Spent my whole career in the oil sands, 33 years and counting, and along that way I've built a strong technical and project management foundation through involvement with many projects in all aspects: project management, construction management, and project development. So, kind of moving on to the role of the advisory board, we basically are looking at guiding the content and the execution of the summit workshops and materials to make it as valuable an experience for all participants as we can. We are very happy to see that we have broad industry participation within the advisory board, not just the oil and gas industry, which is well represented, but also, for instance, the City of Edmonton, NMAX, Nova Chemicals, TransAlta, as well as, of course, Suncor, Cenovus, Husky Energy, Imperial Oil, and Syncrude, and Enbridge, and Shell Canada. So with 2 key industry association partners, COAA and CII, and then the summit organizer group, ASI, as the entity that's helping pull this together. So we have a really great participation of industry, and we're really excited about being able to deliver this summit on May 7th. So maybe a few comments in terms of the advisory board. We feel like we've got good participation and positioning of this summit preceding the COAA Best Practice Conference, and it's a great opportunity for owners to stress the importance of the implementation of AWP in delivery of improved project execution performance in our industry. The summit's been designed with content driven by owners and is focused on aligning all project stakeholders with best practice to realize the full potential of AWP for projects of varied size and complexity. So we've definitely taken into account that we're not just talking about mega projects here. We're talking about all projects. The plenary sessions, and there's several, are each intended to be thought-provoking and interactive. We want to create an opportunity for meaningful discussion between owners, contractors, vendors, and other service providers. And really, a lot of what we're hoping we get in that rich dialogue is identification and subsequent removal of barriers to implementing AWP more broadly in our industry. It is a best practice. It's a best practice recognized by both COAA and CII, and we want that to be the way we work in our industry, and that's a lot of what we're thinking of behind the content that's been developed for this summit. On behalf of the advisory board, we look forward to strong industry-wide representation at the summit, and we're confident that attendees will come away with an improved perspective on how AWP can support delivery of safer, more capitally efficient projects. And with that, look forward to seeing you all at the summit on May 7th. Thank you very much.
So thanks for that, Derek. Our first session of the summit is going to be the owner's expectation panel. And we're very fortunate in that we have representatives from Cenovus, NMAX, Enbridge, Suncor, and Dow that are going to be speaking in that session. And the reason I think this session is so critical is the owners have some definite thoughts about what they want to see with regards to advanced work packaging, and they'll be sharing those thoughts not only with the contractors that are going to be in the audience, but also with the other owners. So the owners are going to be identifying what they want, but it's going to take a team effort to actually do the how. And so each of the contractors, the vendors that work on a project will have AWP processes and systems that they've developed. And so we're going to find that on each project, it's really going to be necessary for the owner and the key stakeholders to work together to come up with an appropriate solution for that particular project. Along those lines, I will be facilitating the session and the owners will be speaking. They've asked me to help set the tone for the day, to provide a brief description of what advanced work packaging is, and we're going to have a 4-minute video that will help with that. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that have been experienced and why we believe we are where we are and what we believe needs to be done to move forward. And then it'll be turned over to the panel. Each of the owners will take on one of these topic areas. So we're going to have Cenovus talk about what the expectations are for contractors in general on projects. Not just in Alberta, but I mean, I think these are broader than just the Alberta landscape. Then we're going to have NMAX talk about what they're looking for in terms of AWP competency and specific things that they'll be looking to. So by coming to the conference, you're going to not only hear this is what they want, but this is also what they're going to be looking for. Then we have Enbridge, and they're going to talk about scalable AWP. And fortunately, the representative from Enbridge has been on the scalable AWP project for the last 2 years, chairing one of the major committees there. So, you know, when we say that AWP needs to be applied to all projects, what does that mean? What projects are we talking about? Is it going to be exactly the same no matter what the project size is? That discussion will come out of this section. Then we're going to have a representative from Suncor talk about the importance of disciplined execution. And again, it comes down to not what are the words, but what are they looking for? What do they need to see to be satisfied that the AWP execution is going the way that they believe it should be as owners? And then finally, we have Dow talking about their approach to portfolio versus project AWP. So Dow's been working on this extensively for the last couple of years. They have, as an organization, put a lot of thought into this, and we're fortunate to have one of their senior people speak on this topic area. Then we're going to be engaging the audience. We're going to have questions for the audience about the barriers, about what leadership looks like, and that information will be fed back to the owners so that we can start a discussion on how we can move forward. So this is a really pivotal session for the day, and I think there'll be a lot of very useful information, and more importantly, I think it'll start a really important discussion. So next we're going to talk about AWP Alignment, and the team that is doing that is headed up by Nova Chemicals, and it's been set up into 3 sub-teams. We've got a sub-team that's looking into preliminary planning and design, and we have PCL and Leadcore on that team. We've got another team that's looking at detailed engineering, and we've got Nova Chemicals and Jacobs looking at that. And then we've got a team that's looking into construction, and that's made up of Bentley and Constructex. Now, all of the teams are supported by a working team that's made up of Eastman, Brand Safeway, and TechnoBuild. So I think, when you look at those 9 companies that are represented, there is a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise there. So I'm going to flip it over to Scott to tell us a bit more.
My name's Scott Randall, and I'm a senior project manager with Nova Chemicals Corporation. I've been with the company for close to 30 years, and I've worked at many of the of Nova's facilities throughout North America. Presently reside in Sarnia, Ontario, and I'm leading a large project to be located somewhere in North America. And so this, the AWP Alignment involvement has come at a just perfect timing for me to be able to implement the advanced work packaging elements in our project. We've got a fantastic alignment team with a lot of knowledge around AWP. They've all worked on projects where they've incorporated advanced work packaging, and they've been willing to share that with all of us at the summit. These gentlemen have brought a wealth of knowledge, and they've been good enough to share it with everybody. As a panel, we had the saying, alignment throughout the entire life cycle is critical to project success. And our team has well over 200 years experience in all aspects of planning and executing projects. So we took that experience, we looked at the project cycles and divided the into 3 working teams. One managing preliminary planning, then detailed engineering, and then construction, which also included startup and commissioning. And working through that, we were able to identify alignment challenges and mitigation strategies. So during the summit, the team, we will share with you a quick reference guide that we developed. It summarized the findings, and that'll be made available to everyone. And the recommendations shared in the session and the reference guide can be applied across a variety of industries and all types and sizes of projects. We really believe that this will be a help to anyone that's looking to implement advanced work packaging.
Great. And our next session is going to be on data and metrics. And so the question is, when you're on one of these projects, well, what is it you have to measure? When do you measure it? What kind of data is going to help you measure it? And we pulled together a team with a lot of expertise to delve into this issue. So I'm going to toss it over to Dean to talk about this team.
Thanks for the introduction. As mentioned, my name is Dean Heminek. I'm with Enbridge Pipelines as a manager within our core projects group. First off, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to join us today for our webinar on advanced work packaging, data and metrics. As a panel lead and owner representative, our first mandate was to determine the appropriate representation from our partner companies that should be on the panel and within the working group. After some deliberation, we determined that the engineering consultant and the constructor have a critical relationship that must be brokered by the owner, and by teaming up with a technology partner, we'd be able to look at and determine what data and metrics would be needed for proactive AWP management. As we're all aware, there are many other key members of a project team. As a panel, we identified the members of the working group over several meetings up front. These members represented piping fabricators, specialized construction trades, as well as specialized commissioning and startup teams. With this membership, we felt that all inputs required for determining what data and metrics are needed for proactive AWP management were at the table. So to give some background on our work, our first mandate as a panel was to take the somewhat lackluster title of AWP Data and Metrics and develop a session description and narrative that allowed us to start pulling together our ideas and keep both the panel and working group on track. With this mandate in hand, we started to develop our session title and description. We all agreed that the data, if collected and trended appropriately, can be used to tell the project if it is progressing correctly or if the project team needs to be proactive and start looking at a corrective action plan. From the simple but important concept, this is how the session title, using data and metrics to track AWP project lifecycle performance, came to be. Over the past couple of months, as we've been developing our plan for rollout at the AWP conference in May, we've had several realizations and many discussions around what indicators are important, what provides value, and what metrics truly use data to show trends and are not subjective. Another realization that was identified by the working group is metrics are specific to each stage of the project. Based on the number of possible metrics, the volume of data required to track can be massive, leading to the question of what do we really need for metrics and what is the data telling us? In order to keep the panel and working group focused on the question, we limited the scope to a maintenance and or minor capital expansion type project within a pipeline facility, which is something that our partner companies are familiar with. During the working group sessions, they developed a list of nearly 100 possible metrics that could be helpful to a project through each stage of the project lifecycle. The working group quickly realized that these metrics and associated data can be applied to projects of any size, but in order to ensure they're focused on the right things, they need to be tailored to suit each project. As I've been working through this exercise as an owner, I can say that as an owner, we need to understand what the data is telling us. And we have to be clear on what our requirements are in the planning stages of the projects by being upfront and defining the execution model that is to be used. As requirements for data and metrics will change from project to project, this early engagement with the project team process can be put in place to monitor, and through proper analysis and understanding, corrective actions can be implemented well in advance. One of the key elements of AWP planning is bringing the project team together upfront during engineering and the project planning stages. With the entire project team together up front, the project team can jointly develop the metrics that they will be held to, and through the use of data collected from previous projects, have a clear understanding of what the data is telling them. The team can then work to eliminate pinch points and put a plan in place to monitor and react as required. As one of the last pieces to our puzzle, our group has realized that early planning and understanding what the data and metrics will be used for is a huge step, but without standardized processes for the collection, the data can be flawed and may not tell us what we need to know. As a team, our next steps are to take our list of metrics and work through what units of measure and processes we may need in place to support the use of data and metrics for tracking of AWP lifecycle performance. I'm looking forward to sharing these findings as well as our learnings at our session in May, and hope everyone will be able to attend. Thank you.
Great. Our next how-to session is on AWP procurement, and unfortunately the panel lead couldn't be with us today, so he's asked me to give you an update on this session. As you can guess, I've been involved with all of the team, so I know I won't be able to do quite as good a job as Keith could have done, but I will do my best. So the issue of procurement is one that is a challenge on every project, and with advanced work packaging, it's raising some really interesting discussions. And the approach that the procurement team took was they have a team made up of an owner, Imperial Oil. They also have Suncor also on the team. SNC Lavalin, Kiewit, and Hexagon are all going to be presenting. But we also got support from COAA, from Husky, from Innate, and from another portion of SNC Lavalin. And what we did was we identified, well, what are the burning issues, the burning questions for each of the various groups? And then we had the other groups chime in and talk about it from a different perspective, from the engineering perspective, from the construction perspective, or from the technology perspective. So basically, the thrust of this is that early engagement of construction is critical to our projects, and specifically it has a huge impact on procurement. And so the 4 areas that they are planning on discussing in their session are: how does the owner's role need to change in an AWP environment to support the procurement activities? Once the owners have discussed that, then we'll be bringing in the contractors, engineering and construction to talk about their perspective, and then we'll be bringing in a technology provider to talk about how technology can impact that area. The next thing that they identified was that the literature is pretty clear. We need to get clear construction input, but there's some challenges to doing that, and that ties back to contract strategies and other things. They're going to talk about that particular issue and then bring in the other parties to provide their perspective. The engineers felt that it was important to talk about preservation and commissioning and procurement, and the other parties need to share their perspectives on that as well. And then finally, construction felt that it was very important that they understood the engineering procurement process and that all of the parties were properly engaged in that. So again, there'll be an interactive discussion where the audience will be brought in. And to encourage that, we're going to be using polling, and we're going to be asking questions about barriers. We're going to be asking questions about leadership. We're going to be engaging the audience to talk about what the next steps are. So I think we've done versions of this topic in Canada, in Houston, and other parts of the world. I think it's very important that we get the right discussion going. So that's this particular session. So our next and final topic of the day will be a Shell case study, and it's going to be presented by Jimmy Richard, and I'm just going to pass it over to Jimmy.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Richard, Construction Manager for Shell Projects and Technology, and I was accountable for delivering construction and construction management processes for Tiger AO4. In my presentation, I'm going to tell you about Tiger AO4 and how we implemented the AWP process. I'll give you some background on the project as well as what the new asset is now delivering to the market. I'll also share with you areas we did really well on the project, emphasizing discipline to the process to enable that success. With any initiative a project or company puts in place, you have to have qualified and competent people, standardized work processes, and proven tools in place. All of them have to be in sync to make it work. And in my presentation, I'll spend the majority of the time talking about the people it took to make it successful, the work processes we put in place and had to put lots of discipline around, as well as the tools we use to enable the process to be integrated, efficient, and predictable. You'll hear about the true benefits we saw as a project by implementing these ways of working, but I also want to share with you our learnings where it didn't work so well, and especially when the AWP process isn't used, the obvious inefficiencies we saw. This is a process that we've adopted within our company, and as a project practitioner, I see the true benefits of the AWP process and I feel as an industry, we're only seeing small benefits so far. I look forward to getting more advanced with the AWP process on my next project, and look forward to hearing success stories from others who are pushing the AWP limit.
So I think that raises a really great point, and that is we've put on conferences in Canada and the United States around workplace planning and AWP for years. One of the greatest benefits is the networking with other people at the event. We're going to have people coming from all over that have differing experiences with advanced work packaging. And we've built in break time so you can get together with those individuals and you can find out what they're doing and they can find out what you're doing in a safe, interactive environment. And I think that at the event, one of the greatest benefits for you will be that interaction with others. This is an initiative that the Construction Owners Association strongly supports. They were co-developers of the advanced work packaging model, and they truly believe that this can help accelerate projects. Given current economic conditions, everything we can do to become more competitive and to become safer is something we need to pursue. So I think this has given you a pretty good sense of what's going to be happening at the summit. We'd love to hear from you. If you don't want to speak now, you can always send us a message, but hopefully this has given you a little more insight into what's going to be covered at the event. We've had over 30 different companies involved in developing the content, and every month we go back to the COAA board and advise them of our progress. So we're fully anticipating that this will be a very positive interactive session. We have people coming from the States to attend, and I'd like to thank you all for calling in today.